News Radio 1000 KTOK, Oklahoma's first news. Mullins here. It is 6:46, and we're honored to have on our newsmaker line our senior senator, Jim Inhofe. Good morning, sir.
Well, good morning, Reid.
I thank you very much for being with us today. There's a big vote going on. You know, some of these, Harry Reid and company trying to backdoor this cap and trade business, and I think we have a vote today, don't we, sir?
Well, we do, but let me just take a second and bring us up to date as to how we got to this point. You and I have been talking over the last 10 years, going all the way back to the Kyoto Treaty, and I've kind of provided the leadership in stopping us from passing cap-and-trade legislation. That would be a huge, huge tax increase. And for those listening to us right now who think I've been wrong on this, even if we were wrong, the administrator of the EPA herself, in a response to a question that I asked, said that if we pass cap-and-trade, either by regulation or by any legislation, it won't reduce CO2 emissions because it only applies to the United States, and that would chase our jobs places where they don't have, like China, where they don't have the restrictions. So I just want to make sure you get that cleared up. Well, we successfully were able to stop legislation for the last 8 years, and now the votes definitely aren't there, and people know better than to vote for it. So what they're trying to do is do it through regulation, have the Environmental Protection Agency do what's necessary to regulate the CO2 emissions. Now, the cost of this, and this is something that's not debatable, it's somewhere between $300 and $400 billion a year it would cost. Now, we have this from MIT, from all these various organizations. But these terms, when I hear billions and trillions, I always bring it down to Oklahoma. What is it? I take the total number of taxes to families who file tax returns and do the math. That would be $3,100 a year it would cost our people in Oklahoma who file tax returns. So they don't get anything for it. And so the big vote now is, since they are trying to do it through regulation, I have the amendment that is supposed to come up this afternoon, and that, of course, it was supposed to come up before our recess, too, but they postponed it. And that is to take the jurisdiction of the Environmental Protection Agency away so that they cannot regulate greenhouse gases. Now, that's a critical vote. They've got the Democrats right down party line. They're trying to defeat it, and, of course, they have a small majority in the Senate. So what Harry Reid is doing is putting two other votes out there. We call them cover votes, Reid. You know what we're talking about. Some of our listeners may not. It allows their people to vote for something that sounds good but doesn't accomplish anything. One is the Rockefeller vote that would put it off for 2 years. All that does is anyone talking about relocating or expanding a plant would have to wait 2 years before they would do it. And the other one is the Baucus vote that is supposedly exempting some of the smaller farms and others from these onerous regulations. But the Farm Bureau, who was in my office yesterday, the Oklahoma Farm Bureau, they're very emphatic. This is their number one concern right now, to try to get this thing passed. It'll pass in the House. They got the votes over there. In the Senate, it'll take 60 votes. It's going to be much more difficult. So it's one of the most critical votes of the year. It should be this afternoon.
All right, Senator, I hate to switch gears on you, but you were able to speak to a military official as part of the Armed Services Intelligence Committee about what's going on in Libya. He says, what, a flicker of Al-Qaeda? I mean, are we siding with people that we used to fight against over in Libya now?
I'm glad you picked that up. Not many people did. I'm the second-ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, and we had Admiral Stavridis, who is the commander of what we call EUCOM, that's European Command. A great guy, and this is not a reflection on him, but I asked him yesterday, and that was live on television. I understand that there are a lot of the people that we are actually fighting in Afghanistan we're now embracing in Libya. Is that right? He said, well, there might be a flicker. I think that's the word he used. I think you have that right. And I said, well, what do you mean a flicker? Will you quantify that? He said, well, I really can't do it. So I think what we did find out yesterday is that in our rush to go in there, we didn't stop to realize who our partners were going to be. And I'm afraid that we might have found ourselves in a situation where we're fighting side by side against the very people that we're fighting against in Afghanistan. I was a little. He made a beautiful speech. First of all, that guy is a real communicator. But when you stop and think about the little reflections that he made that were politically motivated, he said we don't want to wait around for the mass graves to appear. Well, that's a clear shot at Bush and Iraq. And he said, we don't want to have an 8-year with thousands of lives and all this type of thing. So, I was very disappointed. Obviously, if we're going to go in, and I feel strongly about this, if the United States, and historically this has always been the case, if we feel strong enough to go in and attack, then we need to be leading it, not following. Well,
all right.
We didn't lead this, and we followed.
All right, Senator, I'm out of time. I thank you very much for your minutes. Best of luck today, sir. Good to talk to you. 651 at 1000 KTOK.
Traffic and weather.